everyone, so today I'm talking to AJ and she's going to introduce herself now.
Hi, I'm AJ Atkinson from Inner Light Wellbeing. We're a health and wellbeing company that help people with grief and loss.
So we're going to be talking about that today, aren't we?
We are, absolutely.
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about first?
I would like to talk about death. I think the situation of the fact that it's a taboo subject, and I think it's probably one of the last taboo subjects to be brought up, and I think where it comes from is the fact that people are scared of it.
Yeah. I think there is a bit of a awkward pause whenever you bring up the subject. I've noticed that because I've been talking about loss and grief and death, and people don't like talking about it, and they don't know what to say as well. If you come across someone who's lost someone, I think it's often because they don't know what to say.
Yeah, I think so. I think absolutely. And it's the case of like the fear in someone of losing someone that they love. But like you say, it's about the fear of upsetting somebody who's going through it.
Yeah.
So they would prefer to just ignore it or walk across the other side of the street or just not acknowledge it at all.
Yeah.
But I want to bring that up because I think for me, my personal experience, when my husband got diagnosed, if we'd had the conversation, if death had been, not a taboo subject, and it's something that even, you come across in school maybe, I don't know, where then you actually learn to have the conversation and that you should prepare. Because when my husband died, we did not have a will, we didn't have anything in place. So these were all conversations that I had to have with him after he was diagnosed.
Right, so you hadn't thought about it before that point, but after that point then you did start talking about it.
Yeah, because it was a necessity.
Yeah, and then did you put a will in place at that point?
We did, yeah. And but it was the most awkward conversation I have ever had to have.
That must have been so difficult though, because like me and my husband have just put a will in place, and it was difficult enough at that point talking about what would happen if either of us or both of us died. But to go through that knowing that one of you is going to die, like imminently, because obviously everybody is going to die at some point, but knowing that that's going to happen like in the short term must be really tough.
It was really, really difficult. And I can't speak on it obviously on John's behalf, but I could see just how awkward he felt. He didn't want to listen, he didn't want to acknowledge the fact, because it's kind of the cut and dry, isn't it? It's the reality of what's actually happening in the lives right there. So I feel quite strongly the fact that if we could get it out into society where people, it's a normal conversation. Okay, there's only two things in life that's guaranteed, and that's dying and taxes. And I just feel that, we should be preparing people to have these conversations rather than, it being the conversation once, devastating news is there. Or, sometimes when it's too late. Because that's normally, the case.
And if you don't have those conversations, it can make things a hell of a lot worse. So I'm just thinking back to my uncle. My uncle died. It wasn't expected, and he didn't have a will, and it caused so many problems. It was really difficult for the family, all fighting over who gets what and stuff like that.
But it does. It causes friction. Because I know going back, my dad didn't. But my dad, because they wouldn't talk about it, this taboo subject of like, oh gosh, no, we're going to all live forever. Well, the reality, no, we're not. My dad was just convinced, I don't need a will, your mum's going to get everything. And that wasn't the case.
It doesn't work out like that.
No. I had to go through, I'd just lost my dad, and I had to go to probate. I had to go through everything. And it was really, really difficult. So that's why I want to kind of normalise the conversation of
So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what you're doing to normalise the conversation?
Yeah, so I want to make the North East a compassionate place to live and to work. So I am going into workplaces to speak to, from managing directors down, in their companies, to again just start the conversation about death, about grief, about loss, how we deal with it, the language we use around it. So it's just about trying to get people on board to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and I would like to do it in a bit of a light-hearted way, because everybody thinks, oh, death, doom and gloom, you know, and I know it is, it's a really hard subject, but
I think it makes it easier when you can have a bit of a laugh about it as well.
Absolutely, it really does, you know, and it's about just trying to kind of, you know, make people feel prepared. I think it's kind of, because if you're prepared for things, then, you know, sometimes it helps with the shock, and, you know, or being able to plan and having things in place.
I suppose just knowing if you lose your husband or your wife or whatever, knowing what they want you to do in that circumstance.
Absolutely,
as well.
it's having their wishes, because that was another thing, you know, like the funeral arrangements, which was so difficult. Like, you know, I was sitting in the dining room playing songs, saying to my husband, do you like this song? Do you like this song? And he says, what are you doing? Picking my funeral song. And I was like, yeah, please just tell us what you want. You know, it's things like that where it just makes life so much easier.
I was thinking at that point, I thought you were going to say that he said, well, I'm not going to be here, so pick whatever you want. That's what I thought you were going to say, but you didn't say that.
No.
But is that what, do you think he was thinking that?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, I'm going to be here.
Probably because he was so, he was just devastated. He was in complete shock and denial. The fact that this was going to happen, and he just didn't know. He didn't want to talk about it at all. And that's why it's about, you know, just reinforcing the fact of, if we can start the conversations for people and people can get things in place whilst people are happy, because then you get, all right, okay, yeah, so my children know exactly what I want. They know the songs, they know like everything that I want, because it's about, we've had the conversations, we've had a joke about it, and so it's things like that, just that makes it easier for people that are left behind.
Yeah. And it must have been really difficult because you had small children at the time.
Yeah, I had a 2-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 15-year-old. So yeah, it was really difficult. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's about, like I say, if we just had already had these conversations, if this is something that was taught to us, maybe in schools, like I say, I just feel that it wouldn't be such a taboo subject for people. People wouldn't fear it so much.
I think it's a cultural thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
like in our culture, we don't talk about it, but in other cultures, it's just more normal.
Absolutely, but they celebrate people's lives, where we kind of like, you know, we'll go all in on ourselves and like, oh, we can't talk that. It's a subject that's like, I don't want to talk about. And a lot of people literally do say that, like, I cannot have this conversation. I do not want to have this conversation, because they don't want to think about it, because of the fear behind it, the fear about losing somebody that they love, or the fear about them dying, or that they're not going to be here. And I think it's like the fear of, oh my God, you know, I'm not going to live forever.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's the truth, isn't it?
It is, unfortunately. So it's not just death, is it, where you experience grief and loss? There's other situations as well in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, for me, you know, when you look at loss, I can tell you a little bit of a story actually that kind of, you know, that happened to me very only about a month ago. That brought it back to me that loss isn't just about someone dying. I had all of my work on a hard drive and hadn't backed it up onto my laptop or onto anything else, and this is lots and lots of work, lots of hours, and my hard drive got corrupt. So I literally, I just didn't know what to do. I was trying my best, thinking, all right, okay, like, you know, it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. Please don't happen.
So you were in denial.
Complete denial. And took it to a shop where this guy who was, you know, very technical, had said, well, I think probably you've got the chance of it being like 20%. I possibly 20% is the chance that I'm going to get this stuff back. So I was like, oh, like everything was on there, like just so much work. So I felt stupid. I felt, you know, why did I? So I started with, you know,
you're a
yeah. So why didn't I? What if I'd only just backed it up on something else? So then a week had gone by. He'd said, like, you know, all right, okay, I'll try this and see if I can get it back. It's, like I say, the 20% chance. So I'd come to the conclusion that this work was gone, and I had to re-look and try and find other bits of work to try and recoup as much as I possibly could, but there wasn't much, so I was quite low. So the depression.
Yeah.
So when I was looking, I was like, oh, again, you know, but then I said to myself, right, okay, like, you've just got to get over this, you know, it's happened, there's no point in kind of dwelling on it. You need to start moving forward. How are you going to recruit all of that
so you're
stuff?
planning for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he'd you know, about a week and a half, 2 weeks had gone, and I was like, that's it, I've got to just accept the fact it's gone. So there's the acceptance. So I was sitting, and after I'd kind of went through all of these phases, and I was like, oh my God, like, I have just went through the grief process. It's like, there's a sharp shock in the fact that, like, right, okay, yeah, there's the reality of it. So it's not just grief or bereavement or losing somebody that people actually do. And I would just like to add to the fact this man actually managed to find and get it working again, which,
did he?
yeah. So the joy and the emotions, I actually started crying in shock. and literally he just didn't know what to do. He was so an IT guy with an emotional woman going, oh my god, I love you, thank you so much. It was just like, I think it was very overwhelming for him, and I think he probably needs counselling right now.
Okay, we can help with that.
Absolutely. So I just, it made me realise that this is not just emotions that people go through when they're grieving, you know, somebody that they've lost and loved.
Yeah, so some of the videos that I've been doing are around, what have I done so far? So I've done about job loss.
Yeah, that's massive though, isn't it? That's a massive.
So that, you know, if you lose your job, your finances are impacted.
Absolutely.
You might have to move, so it can affect your home.
Yeah.
It might put pressure on your relationship, so it might cause a relationship breakdown.
Yeah. Identity, your
status, your friends, and everything's tied up with your work. And then I've done a video today about divorce and relationship breakdown, and I think you kind of expect that if someone's been dumped, them to go through the grieving process. What you don't expect is if someone instigates that breakup for them to go through it. And I think it's important to acknowledge that that's what's happened, because you know, especially if you're getting married, you've got expectations about what the future's going to look like, and that relationship breakdown, even if you've instigated it because it's not working for you, you had all those expectations and you've lost that future that you'd planned or you'd had in your head. And then that can impact on you where you live as well, because if you share a house with someone, obviously you can't both continue living there if you're not together anymore. So all of these different types of losses impact on every aspect of your life, and can cause other losses and other things that go with the grief process.
Absolutely, I totally
So
agree.
you could be grieving more than one thing all at once.
Yeah, secondary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's secondary losses, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I think as well, because I think when you know, I was going to talk about secondary loss as in the fact of when you've lost somebody in your life. So when I lost my husband, I didn't just lose my husband,
Mm-hmm.
I lost all of our friendships.
Yeah.
So all because we had a couple friendships,
Mm-hmm.
they all disappeared.
Yeah.
So, and you know, financially, I lost the fact that I had, you know, the second wage coming in.
Yeah.
So like financially, I had to, you know, look at that completely. So it's all of these things, but then also our dreams of what we wanted to do. So what you just touched on there, it's the case of, you know, all of a sudden this has come to a halt of what the vision of where we were going, where our children, you know, so it's all of these, that, you know, different areas that have an additional impact on our emotions, on our you know, on our grief process and journey. And it kind of like stacks it up a little bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And making it more difficult. And
so you're not just dealing with the grief of losing your husband in isolation, you're also dealing with the finances and all those practical things that, you know, like probably down to little things like if he used to cut the grass, you haven't got anybody to cut the grass anymore.
Yeah.
You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if he took the bins out, then you have to do it.
Yeah.
And,
Well, it comes a double job, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, from going from 2 to 1, you know, everything's duplicated.
Yeah.
So there's more stress and there's more, you know, anxiety, as in the point of what, you know, what there is to be done.
And potentially less resources to be able to deal with what's happening as well.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So before you mentioned that after your husband died, you had friends who you used to socialise with in couples, and that changed after your husband died, and you didn't have your friends around anymore, as well as losing your husband. So can you say a little bit more about what else happened in terms of other people in your life? How did they react?
A lot of people step back. I think because they thought I was fine because I had this great, you know, front on, but I had 3 children. I had to move forward.
Yeah,
I had to continue.
You couldn't stay depressed in your dressing gown.
Absolutely
and
not.
Stay in bed for
I had a
4
2-year-old.
days.
I had a 2-year-old that wouldn't allow me to do that. He was my ray of sunshine, absolutely. You know, all of my children were, but he just wouldn't allow me to do anything. Literally not. And I think one of the things that I'd realised, well, I didn't actually realise at the time, it was my best friend had said that a lot of people, excuse me, were asking about me or had comments about what I was doing or how I was, you know,
coping with it.
Yeah, the decisions I was making around the children. And
but they weren't asking you?
No.
They were asking your friend about your life?
Yeah.
And how was that for you?
I found it quite amusing, actually, to be
Did
fair,
you?
because I just thought...
That would have really annoyed me.
Would it?
Yeah.
I just found it amusing, the fact that people have got an opinion about what I'm going through, yet they haven't even got the guts to come up and say it to my face.
Yeah.
So I found it, that's how I took it. I took it, you know, hypocritical, really, to be fair, because, okay, you know, if you've walked in my shoes, then you can have a comment on what I'm doing and things, but you haven't, and you're not there supporting or coming and saying anything to me. There was no, you know, constructive criticism. It was just criticism.
Offer of help. You know what I mean? There was no offer of help.
Yeah. So the fact, it got me thinking about the way that, you know, people judge other people when really they don't understand what they're going through.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it must have been like for you, because I haven't, like, obviously I've lost people in my life, but nobody as close as my husband. I've lost my grandparents. I've not lost my husband, and that is the closest relationship I've got.
Yeah.
And from what you've told us about your husband and your relationship, that was what it was like. It was
absolutely.
Like, you know,
soulmate. definitely soulmates. And I was with him from his being 16-year-old, so it was a, you know,
massive change to your life then.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. It kind of went from one extreme to the other. So I was working full time as well, and I just got to the point where with 3 children, one of them, you know, one of my sons was in the academy, so that was demanding just on itself when there was both of us there, and it just wasn't possible for me to move forward doing everything that I was doing. So it had a massive impact on me, physically and mentally, which I had to change things up. I had to, you know, look at what I was doing and change things around. But yeah, it's interesting how people, again, going back to the fact that people think that they know what's best or where you should be, and I look at, and
everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, but like, you know, even the grief process though, it's not linear. It's not like, you know what I mean, you can't say, all right, okay, you've got to be doing this now, or you've got to be doing that now.
Oh, you're depressed now, you need to move into acceptance. It doesn't work like that, does it?
Absolutely not. You know, it's like that. It's like a roller coaster.
I would imagine that you would go through those stages and then go back and maybe experience all of those stages of grief in one day, maybe, depending on what's happening.
It's so, to be fair, it's interesting.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, because it's kind of like, I want to just, I've got a note there to say that grief's messy. It's all over the place. It's not, you know, it for me, you go through grief at different stages as well, because obviously when you hit anniversaries or when you hit birthdays, or what I've found as well is, especially when you've got children, when they hit certain timelines, when they hit certain, like, you know, for instance, my youngest just turned 16. He was only 2 when his dad died, but like the fact that he's had his 16th birthday, and I felt really emotional on that day, because, you know, that's something we should have been doing together. So so it, even though years down the line, it still hits hard. It's still, it's that emotional roller coaster. And for me, grief is for a lifetime.
Yeah, definitely.
You just learn to live through it and manage it.
And what about other people who are in your life as well? So, for example, your husband's parents and his family and your children, how did they cope with not having him around anymore?
Well, his family withdrew. He was the youngest. It's a bit of a touchy subject, to be fair, but like he was the youngest out of 5. Right. And I think they found it really difficult that they had lost their younger brother. And the only way I can explain it is the fact that I think we just reminded him of him.
That he wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's, you know, I think everybody's grief's difficult in the way I look on it. Everybody's grief is the worst grief.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going through is the worst grief. Whatever I'm going through is the worst grief. So you can't judge anybody on what you think it should be, or
well, that's open.
Yeah, absolutely, because everybody's journey is completely different. Everybody's lives are different. Everybody, you know, the way mental stability is completely different. So some people can handle some things and some people can't, and it's about being able to just be kind and help people the best that you can.
Yeah, it was a big revelation when I went through my counselling training, and I'm not saying that this applied in your circumstances, but it was a real revelation. And when somebody in me counselling class actually said, well, you know, if you're working with a client who's lost someone, they might be happy about it. And I was like, what? Never really considered that. And they're like, well, there might have been the big pain in the backside. There might have really been horrible to them. And then, you know, but even in that circumstance, you still have all of these different emotions, because you probably feel guilty that you don't that you're not as sad as you could be, or you know, because human relationships are complicated, and even if you have like the best relationship that you could possibly have, there's going to be times when you fall out with someone, and it's no good remembering them as a saint when they weren't, because nobody is.
Well, I find this with funerals. And I know this is, I don't know whether this is the correct thing to say, but I do believe that I've been to funerals where I haven't even recognised who they were talking about. Remember, like, really? You know, because they drum people up to be this perfect life, and it's like, actually, we're not perfect.
Yeah, humans aren't perfect.
No, absolutely not. But like, I've laughed. I've found it, and it was just like, you know, just be honest, just like, and
yeah, I think we did that when Ian's gran died, because she was quite a character, shall we say, and there were certain things that she did that really annoyed his mum and his dad, and after she died we sort of brought it up and kind of giggle about it now. You know, this kind of things that made you really pull your hair out when they were around.
I see, for me, I want people, like I've said to my kids, tell them that, like, you know, if I annoyed you, be honest, like, you know, like I say, everybody's, I want it to be a realistic point of view when I've died, and people are listening about this, because then it's about oh god, but again, it makes
remember the time when I really annoyed us.
Absolutely it is. That's exactly what it is. It's the case of, like, because it's the memories, because memories aren't always perfect. They're not all sunshine and happiness, and I think some of them, I mean, one of the things that we brought up with my husband was he was rubbish at DIY, right? Honest to God, like, I can't even describe it. So this one day, I think the door had been slammed in the lounge or whatever, you know, children being children or whatever, I'm sure, and it had come off at the wall, but it was like I don't know what you call it, but around the door, the panel, the door frame, so it come loose at the bottom. So my husband says, oh, don't worry, I'll do it. So I was like, all right, okay. So I come back in from work to see a screw drilled into this big gold screw about this big into the bottom of my door frame, and I was like, what have you done? What is that? He was like, well, I tried them tack things and they didn't work. So I was like, oh my God, like, so that was like a standard joke about my husband, that the fact that he was so rubbish at DIY. And it gives people, because people were actually laughing when we're you know, at the funeral, because again, going back to the fact that it's not just a sad time, it's about celebrating life. Yeah,
definitely.
And remembering those quirky, you know, little things that make you. Definitely. And I think people lose that. I think they want to portray at people's funerals the perfect person, and we're not.
Yeah, I think that probably isn't. It's not only not accurate, but it's also a little bit dull, because if you bring out the person's character, you can remember.
Well, you have that giggle, don't you? And it makes it a little bit more lighthearted. Because funerals are very somber and it's very sad times. But again, it's about remembering that person and for truly who they are. And, you know, like for me, I'll say it to my husband, like, people look at it as, I think, a bit strange sometimes, because I'll go, oh God, died on Christmas Day. That's just his personality. That is exactly what he wanted to do. So me and my children, me and my children would never forget him, because that was his fear. Right. So I'd said, you know, you sod, you've died on Christmas Day. We're never going to forget. We would have never forgot you anyways. But on Christmas Day, the only day of the year when you know you want to be happy because Santa Claus has come. But that's him.
So you just said you talk to your husband. Is that something that you do still?
Always talk to him.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And does that help you?
Yeah, I think for me, you do what works for you, don't you? But I do. I find, you know, having a quiet word with them.
He doesn't talk back.
Not yet. Yeah.
But I suppose by talking to him, you can sort of think about what he would probably say. Knowing him really well,
absolutely,
you would know what he would say about certain things.
But what I tell some people as well, like, is if, because I talk to them out loud, but like there's times, you know, like if that's how you're feeling, like writing it down as well, getting it out and make me think, because it's about, if you know the person, you'll know what their response is going to be. You know, and I think especially because I think it's more with the boys, when with, you know, having the children together, it's missing that like husband and dad's point of view. That's when I talk to them, like, you know, help us, come on, give me some strength here, like, you know, if they're being little tinkers, or you know, we've got too much going on, it's like, give me support here.
But your children must remind you of him.
Oh, they're absolutely double of him. Like that 3 pieces apart.
Well.
It is, but it's lovely at the same time. It is. It's it's nice. It's nice. It's difficult, but it's nice. Like you say, it's mixed emotions on everything that you do, because it's like there's that sadness there, but it's also the happiness that he's living on in there. So it is.
Well, that sounds like a nice place to end the
Doesn't
conversation.
it? Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your experiences.
No, thank you for inviting me, Kelly.